David Gilmour's journey from an eager young guitarist to the greatest Fender player of all time is one of rock music's most compelling stories, but he'll be the first to tell you his sound wasn't born in a vacuum. Gilmour's humility is almost as well known as his music. When he beat out the likes of Eric Clapton and Jimi Hendrix in a poll for the best Fender player, he quipped, "Best ever Fender player will come around again, and it will be Eric or Jimmy or someone else." The man might stand as a titan of rock guitar, but he's quick to shift the credit back to those legends who inspired him in the first place.
My musical taste is so broad and encompasses so many people from, the folk music world, your Pete Seeger, Woody Guthrie, Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell, Hank Marvin, Eddie Cochran, thousands. There's
Right.
just thousands, and all of those people's music has entered my subconscious and created a sort of mishmash that has become what is, I suppose, my style.
Gilmour's story with Pink Floyd kicks off in the late 1960s, replacing Syd Barrett, a dear friend but a guitarist whose talent had been tragically hampered by his declining mental health. Gilmour wasn't plucked out of obscurity, though. His music career had already taken him around Europe, playing pubs, clubs, and anywhere that would have him. Alongside his friend Barrett, Gilmour had been hammering away at rock and blues, refining his craft by emulating the greats of the time. Clapton was an idol for young Gilmour, while Hendrix's explosive arrival in London threw him into new realms of psychedelia and raw energy. But Gilmour, a relentless perfectionist, was never content to stop there. Unlike some musicians who tout an image of raw, natural talent, Gilmour is more honest. His technique, he says, was laughable at first, and he had to pick up every trick in the book to make his guitar sing the way he wanted. Yet he never saw this as a drawback. In fact, he embraced his lack of formal training, turning it into an advantage. "I copied, don't be afraid to copy, and eventually something that I suppose that I would call my own appeared," he famously said. Gilmour believes the trick isn't in blind copying, but in using influences as a launchpad to something uniquely personal. Pete Seeger and Lead Belly taught him the basics of folk and blues, but it was Clapton, Hendrix, and British legend Hank Marvin who inspired the flourishes that would eventually define Pink Floyd's sound. He counts Hank Marvin as a lifelong influence, a figure whose clean, melodic style struck a chord with the young Gilmour. Marvin, playing with the Shadows alongside Cliff Richard, was already a star in the British rock scene, and his signature tremolo sound made him a formative influence on British guitarists of the era. Gilmour's admiration for Marvin's style, a polished blend of British rock and clean instrumental lines, left a lasting impact on the tone Gilmour would bring to Pink Floyd's work. And let's not forget Chuck Berry, the wild originator of rock and roll whose duck-walking antics and riff-heavy style cemented his place in rock history. For Gilmour, Berry's influence was undeniable. His licks appear in Gilmour's playing like distant echoes of early rock roots. It's Berry's unfiltered energy, his simple yet powerful riffs, that Gilmour carried into his own playing. Gilmour may have polished his sound into something more expansive and melodic, but he never lost that raw edge Berry brought to his music. Another towering figure for Gilmour was, rather surprisingly, George Harrison of the Beatles. He once confessed that he wished he'd been in the Beatles, a nod to his admiration for Harrison's technical precision and melodic sensibility. Harrison's quiet, introspective style of playing mirrored Gilmour's own personality, and while Harrison may have been overshadowed by Lennon and McCartney, his unique guitar work resonated with Gilmour. Harrison's blend of technique and emotional depth influenced Gilmour's approach, particularly in the way he uses his guitar to tell stories through melody. By the time Gilmour joined Pink Floyd, he'd absorbed these influences and was ready to push rock guitar to a new level. Among all the guitar greats David Gilmour admires, it's Jeff Beck who truly takes the top spot. Gilmour has called Beck his all-time favorite guitar player and often credits him as one of the most transformative forces in his own approach to the instrument. The Yardbird's icon and master of expressive, boundary-pushing techniques inspired Gilmour from the earliest days of his career. Watching Beck perform in London's gritty music scene of the 1960s, Gilmour was drawn to his ability to merge technical brilliance with unbridled emotion, something Gilmour would later weave into his own style. Beck's unmistakable tone, achieved without reliance on effects but purely through touch and nuance, was a revelation. Gilmour has mentioned that Beck's playing style captivated a generation and quite simply blew him away.
Same guitar.
I probably the person who I have admired the longest and the most consistently is Jeff Beck in the guitar playing stakes. And a lovely guy. Mm-hmm.
He didn't have the speed of a Hendrix or the wild technical flair of a Clapton, but he made up for it with a focus on melody, tone, and that ethereal quality that defies words. His playing wasn't about fireworks, it was about making the guitar weep, scream, soar, every note placed to perfection. Gilmour's solos became an integral part of Floyd's storytelling, particularly in albums like The Dark Side of the Moon and Wish You Were Here, where his guitar became a voice as powerful as any lyric. For Gilmour, guitar wasn't just an instrument, it was a form of speech. He admitted that he struggled with words, that his thoughts were clearer on the fretboard than they ever could be in conversation. The solo in Comfortably Numb isn't just a highlight in Pink Floyd's catalogue, it's one of the finest moments in rock history, a moment where Gilmour's every emotion is laid bare, no words necessary. Later in his career, Gilmour paid homage to his influences in a way few musicians do, by selling off his collection of guitars, including his beloved Black Stratocaster, raising millions for charity. Just an auction, but a public acknowledgement of the journey he'd taken and of the legends who had walked beside him in spirit. Asked once again about his influences, he listed the usual suspects: Seeger, Leadbelly, Jeff Beck, Clapton, but was quick to add, "I learned from dozens more." It's that openness, that willingness to continue learning, that has kept Gilmour's sound so fresh, so evocative, over decades of music. In Gilmour's mind, the journey of learning is endless. His style may now be one of the most recognizable in rock history, yet he still approaches it as a student, perpetually paying tribute to those who inspired him. Gilmour's story is a lesson to every aspiring musician. Greatness isn't about raw talent or innate originality. Sometimes it's about listening, learning, and finding your own voice in the echoes of those who came before. And if you do it right, you might just end up creating a sound that, like Gilmour's, will be celebrated for generations to come.